I don't even know why I'm making this video. The scene I'm going to talk about is just so horrible what happened. Maybe because I've just never been able to get this scene out of my head. And by making a video about it, maybe I can get more clarity and closure and maybe get some more information on why this death scene literally haunted me for years. Anybody who's played Gears of War 2, you already know. You already know what I'm going to talk about. There is no possible other death scene I'm about to describe in the series than the one you're thinking of right now. Ugh. Look, this video isn't just about saying hey everyone, wasn't that death scene just awful? That was really horrible, right? This video is about a moment in gaming that showed me it's possible to tell stories that can literally scar you from just seeing it. In a time before 4K graphics and motion capture were a thing, where the story and writing and voice acting superseded any graphical and technical limitations and just cut you straight to the bone. And ultimately, how powerful these stories can be when you actually play as the characters themselves, no matter how outdated the graphics might look. Quick side note before we go on, I make a lot of video essays like this, and if you want YouTube to show you more of them, go ahead and click that subscribe button. All right. First, we need to define some talking points here. I'm not saying Gears of War had one of the most violent death scenes in a game, although these games are definitely violent. I'd actually love to hear if you have a different opinion. You can tell me in the comments. But I'd say for me, the most violent and realistic deaths in all of video games was in The Last of Us 2. Never before in a video game, not even in Gears of War, have I ever felt so much nausea watching characters kill each other. Honestly, I played through that game on the hardest difficulty my first playthrough, which was brutally, terribly difficult. But after watching Ellie strangle her victims as their thrashing limbs slowly stopped moving and she stabbed her victims in the neck as they silently mouthed screams caught in their throat, that up close, with that motion capture, with that camera angle, honestly, I've just never ever felt the desire to go back and play through that game again. I'm sure I will someday, but geez, that was just consistently horrific to watch. Again, tell me what you think in the comments. Anyway, I'm not talking about that. As a matter of fact, when it comes to realistic graphics, the Gears of War franchise has never really even come close to the industry's heaviest hitters. Games like The Last of Us 1 and 2, Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West, Spider-Man 1 and 2, Senua's Saga, God of War, the Final Fantasy Remake and Rebirth, mostly Sony first-party games actually. These are all examples of games with far superior facial and body animations and overall immersion through hyper-realistic motion capture graphics rendered in 4K at 60, even 120 frames per second. When it comes to violence though, Gears of War ain't no pushover. And honestly, they're probably among some of the most bloody games I've ever played. Protagonists Marcus Phoenix and company regularly explode into massive chunks of limbs and blood and viscera. You can curb stomp enemies' heads into an explosive goopy pulp. You can shove a chainsaw-mounted assault rifle through an enemy's back and out the other side and literally cut them in half as your screen gets sprayed with blood and guts. But Gears of War, the second one to be specific, has the most brutal death scene in a video game that I have ever seen or watched or even heard about. It was one of those moments that was so horrifying and traumatizing that I distinctly remember everything about that night when I first saw it. I was in college, I just got my Xbox 360, it was late at night, my friends and I were playing through the game online, I was sitting on my couch with the lights off, and we both couldn't speak as we watched in horror the most brutal death scene we'd ever seen in video games before or since. The scene, of course, is the moment when Dom finally finds his wife. So, let's talk about it. Like many console-selling AAA narrative storytelling adventure games, Gears of War has a sprawling, powerful story of a world with characters trying their best to save those they love, battling against insurmountable odds as they fight for their life and things worth protecting. I'm not going to tell you the whole Gears of War story here. Actually, one of my favorite YouTube channels, Gaming Harry, made a video detailing all the Gears of War stories so far, and the video is sitting at a tight 4.5 hours long. Essentially, the human citizens of the planet of Sarah, basically a fictional Earth, find themselves invaded by the Locusts, a species of subterranean humanoid mutants that are hell-bent on killing all humans, and they're very good at it too. After Gears of War 1, the Locusts have basically invaded and destroyed just about every single human city left on the planet, leaving the remaining population stuck in one weak, failing city. Gears of War 2 finds us again with Marcus Phoenix leading his team of Dom, Baird, and the Cole Train as they attempt to stop the Locusts from blowing up Jacinto, the last remaining human city on the planet. But suddenly, the Locusts begin implementing a new tactic: kidnapping humans. For a species that has spent over 14 years happy to just blow up any humans they find, Marcus and company are understandably at a loss over this baffling and terrifying new strategy by their enemy. One of the reasons why the death scene I'm talking about, and I'm going to show you in a minute, so fair warning, brace yourself, is because of the buildup that leads to it. The entire game, you're playing as Marcus and Dom, desperately battling an overwhelmingly powerful and relentless enemy that is winning, trying to save the last bastion of hope of humanity. Admittedly, I always kind of felt it was a bit cheesy that it always seemed like the entire planet's hopes for survival were consistently pinned on Marcus and his team. Like, literally just the four of them, to accomplish some key mission. Still, the stakes are what they are, and you're fighting for humanity's survival. It's not about just Marcus or Dom or any one person. If they succeed, they save humanity. If they fail, humanity dies. No one person's private goals could ever override such a high-stakes outcome. But in spite of this, these are real humans you're playing as. As for Dominic Santiago, there is one goal that overrides all other goals, orders, and instructions by his commanding officers. It's finding his wife, Maria, kidnapped by the Locust. One of the best parts about Gears of War is the way the developers can present smaller scale, but in many ways more important stories that truly impact the players. Yes, we've all played as video game protagonists that need to fight off alien invaders to survive, but each of the four main characters in Gears of War has a much deeper goal beyond just saving humanity that has truly made these characters, for me at least, some of the most memorable video game characters I've ever played as. Marcus Phoenix could have just been some generic tough guy army man, complete with the trademark scowl, the no-nonsense seriousness, and endless supply of over-the-top guns to solve all his problems. But he's not. Marcus Phoenix is the son of Adam Phoenix, a brilliant scientist and engineer responsible for completing the fabled Hammer of Dawn, a weapon of immense power that the warring factions of humanity were determined to use on each other to gain power. Marcus stops his father from distributing the weapon, but then changes his mind and leads an unauthorized rescue mission to save his father from a Locust invasion, where he fails as he watches his father appear to be killed. This lands Phoenix in a jail cell for 40 years for his crime. But rumors spread, and Marcus finds evidence that his father might be alive. Remember, Marcus is usually responsible for saving all of humanity, but he also has a more important intrinsic goal: find his father, which, not to spoil things, is a major part of Marcus's story. Or how about Coltrane, the happy-go-lucky, endlessly positive maniac who never appears to let any war atrocities dampen his hollering, pedal-to-the-metal personality to kill locusts and have fun doing it, even if he has his moments where it all finally gets to him. There's a scene where he remembers the day the locust came through the surface, and it's just so freaking terrible and horrible and incredibly powerful. A former globally famous sports star, he was basically like LeBron James and Tiger Woods rolled into one. Before enlisting into the military to fight for the planet, Cole eventually had a chance to visit his old home stadium in his hometown of Hanover, where statues and cardboard cutouts of Hanover's favorite son still stand over a decade later. We see Cole finally show how much hurt he must have felt when he says one of the most powerful lines in all of gaming. You ever feel like you're dead, but nobody told you? I mean, come on. Gears of War is full of stories like this, and none are more powerful or more heartbreaking than Dom's. All throughout Gears of War 2, Marcus and company are attempting to save humanity, but for Dom, humanity doesn't mean much at all without a particular human, his wife Maria. After her parents and her two children she had with Dom were killed by the Locust, Maria went into self-exile while Dom enlisted to fight against the Locust Horde. But her and her small community were eventually captured by the Locust, and Dom spent nearly 10 years searching for her. When he finally found her, well,
I can't believe it,
see for
Marcus.
yourself.
We finally found her.
Dom finds Maria, and he's happy. There's a note of childlike giddiness in his voice, almost like a kid on Christmas, as he opens up her presumed coffin, of which she must have been stranded in for God knows how long.
Maria.
Dom can't accept what he'll find. All he can think of is finally seeing his wife again, in all her beauty and glory, and embracing her and making his life whole again. And for a few moments, that's what his mind tells him. The very first time I saw this scene, when they opened her cell and saw her in clean clothes and hair done, it took my breath away. Because underneath that, we all knew, this wasn't real. And the developers gave it away. She's swaying, barely able to stand. Dom sees her dressed as he remembers, but his mind can't fully fool him into seeing her as healthy and whole. Even in his vision, she's stumbling towards him, like a lobotomized zombie, only moving towards the direction of noise, nothing more. That's when Marcus steps in, and he only needs to say one word. Dom. His wife is gone. Utterly gone. Worse than gone. She must have endured a fate far, far worse than death.
No, baby. No. What did they do to you? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Maria. I tried to find you. God, I did. Please, no. Maria. God damn it, it's me, Dominic. It's Dominic. Marcus, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, man.
No. It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
These are not good graphics. This is not motion captured 60 FPS with realistic facial animations. But this was, and continues to be, the most visually striking, haunting vision stricken upon my brain that I've ever experienced in all of my life playing video games. It didn't need to be realistic looking graphics to fully convey the absolute, utterly horrific fate that Maria must have endured. And the only act of mercy that Dom could do was to free her from her pain. So yeah, like I said, most brutal death scene in all of video game history. How do you pick up the threads of an old life? How do you go on when in your heart you begin to understand there is no going back? There are some things that time cannot mend. Some hurts that go too deep, that have taken hold. That was a line spoken by Frodo Baggins at the end of his terrible journey through Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. For Dom, there's not really any happy ending here. This event in Dom's life kind of defines him forever, and he never really recovers. And that's a pretty intense lesson to learn from a video game I played when I was first 19 years old. That there is a level of trauma, of heartbreak, of loss that can be so great, so tremendously powerful that it can change someone forever. And Gears of War 2 taught me that. The Gears of War franchise has kind of gone off the rails a bit in recent years. I recently just beat Gears of War 5 for the first time, and before I even knew that the writing team had actually changed drastically from the first games, I already began hearing Marcus and his team talk, and it just didn't sound like how they used to. They were different and lesser versions of themselves from the first 3 games. It's rare to find truly excellent video game characters and protagonists. Although, fortunately, in the last 10 years or so, we've seen a huge spike in these characters. Think Kratos from God of War, Joel from The Last of Us, Geralt from The Witcher, Nathan Drake from Uncharted, Arthur Morgan from Red Dead 2, etc. And for my money, Marcus Phoenix. Marcus Phoenix has always been one of the greatest protagonists in all of video games for me. Across multiple games as the main protagonist, across dozens and dozens of hours of campaigns, Marcus almost never even so much as cracks a smile or gives a genuine chuckle. But despite looking like the dime a dozen brooding military tough guys with a big gun, Marcus Phoenix has always exuded this incredibly strong, heartfelt concern for his team and his goals. He's more tired than pissed off, although he's often very pissed off. He just wants to rest, but he keeps finding himself in situations where it's up to him and him alone to save some key pillar of humanity's last stand against extinction. And he's always willing to shut his mouth and do his job, no matter how much bullshit is dumped on him and his team. Marcus has gone through a lot throughout this series, and by the end, the weight of the world on his shoulders has nearly broken him, bending his back under the full might of the futile, endless battle against forces determined to kill him and everyone he loves or die in the process. But in spite of this, for me, Marcus's sidekick Dom takes the grand prize for the most heartbroken, most damaged, most traumatized character in the entire series. Voiced by video game acting legend Carlos Ferro, who's also done voice work in the Assassin's Creed series, Payday, Saints Row, Shenmue, Final Fantasy XIII, and more, Ferro's Dom comes to life and then ushers the audience through the crashing, shattering defeat his character succumbs to after literally having to euthanize his own lobotomized wife, driven to madness through extreme torture behind enemy lines. For me, it isn't the most violent death in video games. It isn't the most realistic looking death. But man, that death scene in Gears of War is still, without a doubt, the most brutal death in a video game I've ever seen. Thanks for watching. And if you want to watch more videos like this, be sure to click that subscribe button.